Assalamu alaikum and hello to my non-Muslim viewers. I'm going to try to keep this video as short as possible, so I'll just get to it. It's commonly said by Christian critics of Islam and Christian students of Islam and things like that. They say that Islam accepts Paul as a true apostle, or Islam accepts Paul as a true disciple of Jesus. So Paul is an accepted figure in Islam. Now, is that true? No, it isn't. Now, they'll cite sources that do say that. They'll cite sources like Ibn Ishaq, pages 653, Al-Tabari, volume 4, page 123, Tafsir Qurtubi, etc., etc. So they'll cite sources. So what does it mean to be a prophet? A prophet is someone who gets prophecy, and Paul claimed prophecy in the New Testament. He claimed the gift of prophecy in Romans chapter 12 verse 6, 1 Corinthians chapter 13 verse 2, 1 Corinthians chapter 13 verse 9, 1 Corinthians chapter 14 verse 3. However, so Paul can be seen as a prophesizing prophet, or someone who has the gift of prophecy according to his own claims. But the Prophet Muhammad said, the problem is the Prophet Muhammad said that there's no prophet between him and Jesus, that Jesus was a prophet and Muhammad was a prophet, and there's no prophet in between that 600-year gap between Jesus and Muhammad. In Sahih Bukhari 3442. So basically, the Prophet Muhammad or Islam is basically rejecting anybody who came before Muhammad who claimed prophecy, except for Jesus. So between that 600 years between Muhammad and Jesus, there was no prophet there's no prophet in between Jesus and Muhammad according to Muslim scriptures, according to Muslim sources. And again, this is found in Sahih al-Bukhari 3442. So then the question really arises, what about Ibn Ishaq and Al-Tabari saying these things? Well, I got Ibn Ishaq's book right here, The Life of Muhammad. So it's true that Ibn Ishaq says that Paul was a disciple of Jesus. That's true. I'm not denying that. But the problem is that Ibn Ishaq is a weak source anyways. It's not authentic. Because if you go to page 36 of this book, there are many Muslim scholars who've rejected Ibn Ishaq. Muslim scholars like Al-Nisa, for example, Al-Nisa said that Ibn Ishaq is not strong. Ahmad ibn Hanbal incorporated many of Ibn Ishaq's traditions in his Musnad, but never paid heed to them. In other words, they were useless. Yahya bin al-Qattan would never quote from him, and Yahya ibn Qattan was an early Muslim scholar. Let's see here. Yahya bin Sa'd said that he knew Ibn Ishaq in Kufa. He abandoned him intentionally and never wrote down traditions on his authority, etc., etc. So there are many Muslim scholars. Oops, I forgot to mention, Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Nuwair said that Ibn Ishaq sometimes reported worthless sayings from unknown people. So even if Ibn Ishaq said that, he's probably just reporting, worthless sayings from unknown people. So it was probably some rumor that was going around, and Ibn Ishaq wrote it without any kind of. Ibn Ishaq didn't do any fact checking here. So it's just Ibn Ishaq's opinion, and Ibn Ishaq's opinion was rejected by Muslim scholars as being irrelevant. So then what about the next source? The next source is Al-Tabari, volume 4, page 123. However, I looked into this source, and it's not authentic, or it's not reliable. I have Al-Tabari's book right here, Al-Tabari, volume 1, and if you go to page 170 to 171, Al-Tabari warns people that his books are filled with weak and authentic narrations. And that narration about Paul being a true prophet or a true disciple or apostle is false, because there's unknown narrators in the isnad, or the chain of transmission. Notice what Al-Tabari says. It says, "This book of mine may be found to contain some information mentioned to us on authority of certain men of the past, which the reader may disapprove of, and the listener may find detestable because he can find nothing sound and no real meaning in it. In such cases, he should know that it's not our fault that such information comes to him, but the fault of someone who transmitted it to us. We have merely reported it as what it was reported to us. So Al-Tabari is blaming the transmitter. He's saying, but the fault of someone who transmitted it to us. So that means Al-Tabari is blaming the transmitter or the source of the information. So people back then weren't always honest. So, but Al-Tabari was just recording anything from anybody without fact checking it. But this narration in Al-Tabari Volume 4, page 123 is not reliable. It's not authentic. I looked into it. What about the Tafsirs? Basically, there's only one Tafsir that says that Paul was a prophet, and that's Tafsir al-Qurtubi. But the problem is Tafsir literature, Tafsir books are filled with false stories or false accounts. Muslim scholars admit this in Fazil al-Qadeer, Volume 1, page 27, and Imam Suyuti in his book Al-Itqan, Volume 2, page 471. And again, I'll be posting all my references below. So Tafsir books are generally not reliable because what they would do is they would pass on Israelite sources. Israelite sources were Jewish and Christian sources. And Ibn Kathir in his book al-Bidad al-Nihaya, Volume 1, page 15, said that those stories that were passed on by Jews and Christians are false, or essentially loads of false information. So Tafsir books basically had the same problem that Al-Tabari and Ibn Ishaq had. They would record these worthless or these false or these worthless sayings just for the sake of recording them without doing any kind of fact checking to see whether they're true or false. So it's claimed that Paul is a prophet according to Islam is false, according to authentic Muslim sources, and according to Muslim scholars, the sources that mention Paul being a prophet in Ibn Ishaq, page 653, Al-Tabari, Volume 4, page 123, and Tafsir al-Qurtubi. All three of those sources are generally not authentic or weak sources according to Muslim scholars. They're not authentic. Again, if you want authentic sayings, or if you want authentic commentaries or tafsirs, you gotta go to Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Abu Dawud, Ibn Majah, Al-Nisa, Tirmidhi, Tafsir Ibn Kathir, parts of Tafsir al-Tabari, etc., etc. So those would be in the Quran, etc. So those would be the most. And Ibn Hisham's biography of the Prophet Muhammad. Ibn Hisham was a 4-volume set biography. So you got to look at Ibn Hisham, Ibn Kathir, Tafsir Ibn Kathir, Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Tirmidhi, etc., etc. So that's all I wanted to say about Paul. Paul is not accepted in according to authentic Islamic sources. Stay tuned. A lot more videos are up ahead. Thanks so much.